Good afternoon and welcome to this week's AdWeek webinar. We're looking at engagement as a new acquisition. It's all about getting more out of your mobile app marketing, and it's being brought to you in partnership with Tune. I'm Stuart File, Custom Publishing Director of AdWeek, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I just want to go over a few details of the On24 console just to make sure everybody knows the features that they have and set you up for today's webinar. The formal presentation today will be about 30 to 35 minutes. Afterwards, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A time. So if you have a question for today's speakers, use the Q&A widget in On24 to ask it, and we'll get to as many as we can. If we don't get to your question, we always make sure that the speakers have a copy of all the questions that were asked, so they will have a chance to get to you offline or to use that for a blog post or another way to look at those issues. We're going to be supporting social sharing on today's webinar. Down there on the bottom right, you'll see the hashtag we're using, hashtag AdWeekTune. Please use that on Twitter. You can use the Twitter widget in On24, or you can just head on over to Twitter, share the slides, share what you've got going on there. Let us know you're here and attending. We'll be tweeting out slides from the deck as well, so you can use that to share with your network. If you have a colleague who you want to invite to today's webinar, the widget on the bottom right that looks like a paper airplane, that'll open up a pre-populated email with a link over to the registration page. So please send that on out. If they can't make it live, they can certainly come back and view the on-demand version of today's event, and the on-demand recording will be live about 2 hours after today's webinar ends. So please share this with your colleagues. There's going to be a lot of great information, a lot of great examples of in-app marketing. And so I'm sure it's an area that people seem to have a lot of questions, and there's a lot of information that's needed. In the resource list folder on the bottom of your screen, that's also one of the widgets. It's the green one. You'll find a copy of today's slide deck, along with a few other links, a link over to the Tune website, a link over to the AdWeek webinar calendar. Please, if you enjoy this webinar, come to another AdWeek webinar. We've got a few coming up on a variety of topics, things like content management, how to manage your freelancers, certainly a big area for a lot of people in the agency world and creatives, and a few other things on mobile and issues related to mobile advertising and location. So check out the calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars. Follow us on Twitter @AWWebinars. You'll see all that on the left side of the console. Just click on those links. They'll take you right over there. Please join us on that. So let's look at today's speakers. We've got a couple of guys over from Tune who really know what's going on in the in app engagement. We've got John Koetsier, who's he's a mobile economist at Tune, and John's actually joined us for a previous webinar, and he studies, analyzes, forecasts trends affecting the mobile ecosystem. Before he was over at Tune, he was doing this over at the VB Insight research team, which he built over at VentureBeat. So he certainly knows a lot of the research going on here. We're also joined by Dan Koch, who's Director of Marketing Automation at Tune. Dan's a software architect, an entrepreneur, a writer, and he used to work over at Artisan, which was a mobile experience management platform that Tune acquired last year. So let me pass this on over to John.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Stuart, and thanks so much. You said my name correctly. I kind of think Dan's is harder. I mean, how you get Coke out of that, I'm not entirely sure, but it's all good. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody who is joining the webinar. You can congratulate yourself on being intelligent because you're joining a webinar. We had a Tune event in Denver today, and there's apparently the worst snowstorm in 20 years, which is canceled, but this webinar is still live. Again, thanks for joining. We're going to do a quick overview of the state of mobile. We're going to talk a little bit about where mobile user acquisition is now. Then we're going to move to engagement, and we're going to spend the bulk of our time there. What it is, why engagement matters, how to do it, what results you can expect from it, and what brands are doing today. And we'll have some real examples, some from tuned customers, some from who are not brands who are not tuned customers. And we'll spend most of our time there, 10 stories of companies that are using engagement tools to drive business results on mobile. Dan and I are going to tag team a little bit, especially on those example parts. Do check us out on Twitter. There will be a couple of cases where I'll be asking, and maybe Dan as well, for some questions or commentary, and love to engage with you there as well. So I'm starting with this slide here. You probably heard this phrase, "May you live in interesting times." It's not actually a Chinese curse. That's a fiction. It might actually be a blessing. I think it is actually. But we do indeed live in very, very interesting times. We released a report just a month or two ago on the state of mobile in 2016, and 3.4 billion people now have smartphones. That's 47% of the global population. That's really, really impressive. The interesting thing for us is that 800 million people joined that smartphone revolution last year. 600 million more are joining the party this year in 2016, which means we're going to have a majority on the planet in 2016 who own a smartphone. And that means we'll have about 80% of the planet on smartphones by 2020. I mean, we could spend just a few hours on the implications of that alone. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty interesting. In terms of device penetration, the whole world is going to look like what the U.S. does now in just 5 years. Now, there's differences. Other places are arguably more advanced in some ways in terms of m-commerce or m-payments or whatever, but in terms of device usage and device penetration, that's pretty impressive. The reality is that in terms of the amount of time we're spending with our mobile devices, in terms of how central they become to our lives, in terms of how dependent we become on them, and in terms of how much context and history and knowledge our devices have about what we do, what we like, where we're going, and what we buy, mobile is the most transformative shift in marketing ever. So maybe since the invention of money or possibly language, but it's absolutely transformative. And we're going to just go very, very briefly into one of the implications, just one illustration of that. Is global commerce. If we look at global retail commerce, we see about a $27 trillion I can't say industry, but segment this year in 2016. If we actually break that down a little bit and we say, hey, where's e-commerce in that? That's about $2 trillion this year. That's web commerce, right? E-commerce, about $2 trillion. It's only about 7% of global retail. So I mean, as far as we think we may have come, we're still in the early stages even of e-commerce. And then if we look at m-commerce, m-commerce is about $450 billion in 2016. It's less than 2%. The interesting part, though, is actually the growth rates. The growth rates are where the story is actually being told. Consumer retail spending will grow between 3 to 8% from here to 2020. Consumer e-commerce will grow between 10 and 20% annually to 2020. M-commerce, different story. That's growing between 20 and 50% each year to 2020. Some of the higher rates in the 40s and the high 30s in the next couple of years, and slowing down as the revolution takes hold. Essentially, what we're seeing here is that all commerce is moving to digital, and all digital is actually moving to mobile. So all commerce is moving to digital, and all digital is moving to mobile. Now, that's exciting and maybe scary, certainly interesting times. At the same time, however, we have to be aware that we're also seeing the end of the gold rush years for growth in mobile device penetration. The really, really fast growth years are gone for good. You know, shockingly, as everybody here will recognize, you can't have infinite growth rate increases in a closed system. So the massive growth of smartphone penetration means that inevitably growth rates are slowing, especially in the rich Western nations. That has implications for user acquisition costs, which are obviously jumping up lately. If you're going to have an app on mobile, you want to get your customers on board, you want to get new users, you want to acquire those new users and customers, but it's expensive. Those costs that you see there are representative of some of the costs in some of the verticals right now on mobile. Getting new users, you can easily pay $2 to $5 for new users. And it's not unheard of to pay $40 or $60 for very particular users. Catching these whales, these very, very high-value users, is hard. Mobile games in particular work very, very hard to attract those high-value users, because 60% of the revenue in games comes from 1 out of every 500 users. Pretty crazy. 60% of the revenue in games coming from 1 out of every 500 users. So it's very rare, but there are people who have spent 6 figures on a casual, quote-unquote casual mobile game. And I talked to one mobile gambling executive in Seattle who said that one of their players had spent over $500,000 in those games. That's led to what you see right here. We spent almost $5 billion in the U.S. alone on mobile user acquisition ads, and in 2016, that's going to bump another $500 million. The reality is, with the costs of acquiring users on mobile going up and up and up, you've got to get really, really good at engaging and keeping and monetizing the users that you do get. That might sound like a mobile-first problem, but brands and other companies are playing in the exact same sandbox, so you've got to deal with it as well. All that means that we're now shifting gears, moving from a full-on focus on acquisition, which we saw in the early years of the App Store and app economy, to a focus on engagement. We're still acquiring users and customers, obviously, but there's more of an emphasis on going deeper. Engagement is regular active usage on what I call the 3-foot device, right? It's never more than 3 feet from our bodies. It could be hourly, it could be daily, it could be weekly. It depends on the type of app. We check that phone 200 times a day. It's never more than 3 feet from our bodies. If you're a brand, you really, really need a foothold on that most personal devices, which is going to mediate almost all of our interactions with the digital world. It's critical if you want to know your customers, serve them, and sell to them. I wanted to show, before we get into the examples, 2 cases of engagement. One is mobile first, and one is actually retail. So here, I don't know if you want to reach out on Twitter or hazard a guess there, but I would wonder how many people recognize this company. This company has $2.3 billion in revenue, almost $1 billion in profit, only 180 employees. $30 million in revenue per employee, essentially. That's an example of the results of engagement. And this company happens to be Supercell, with the makers of Clash of Clans. You've seen their ads on TV and on mobile, all over the place. And I think 3 other games. They just launched 1 new one recently. They have 4 games and that much revenue. Pretty interesting. Those guys have figured it out. They understand engagement. They're killing it not only because they can attract new users, read customers if you're not mobile first, but also and especially because they can engage them long term. Very, very interesting. Here's another example, maybe one that you may not have heard of. This is GameStop, and it's an example from the brand and retail side. Now, obviously they sell games, but this is a retail outlet with several thousand bricks and mortar locations in the U.S., and that's a critical part of their value proposition. They launched an app. The app connects people, tells people what they've got, offers values or trade-ins on older games, lets them build lists of what they want, brings people into the store, helps them connect, other things like that. The result, and I talked to a VP of marketing at GameStop just a month ago, said that their app-using customers are worth double the top level of their loyalty club customers. Very, very interesting, very, very insightful, and a game changer, no pun intended, in terms of how to engage with customers, even in a retail setting for a brand, bring them into a physical location more often, and get a deeper share of wallet from what they're doing. So clearly, engagement is critical. We know games can make money on mobile. We're seeing brands do the same, and I wanted to bring out some brand examples and some brand successes. So the question is, where do you start, right? How do you increase engagement? Well, clearly it starts with the app, right? It needs to be a great app. Needs to meet a consumer need, not just your needs. And yeah, you need to promote it, absolutely. But there's also things that you can do in the app and around the app to drive higher engagement. Typically, brands are accomplishing that with a mobile marketing automation or an in-app marketing solution. That's software that plugs into your app, helps you understand your users or customers right down to the individual level, and provides a customized, interactive experience for them, as well as messaging. One of the things that I called it as I did some of the initial research on this over a year ago was CRM for mobile. Right? You've got app analytics. You know what's going on in your app. That's a top-down view that aggregates everything, and you see big buckets. Forest view. In-app marketing tells you what's going on in your app, but it tells you from the perspective of people. It's more of a bottom-up tree view. It's almost like a CRM for that mobile. And here is what you're looking at right now is a fuller picture of what MMA solutions do. And these are the most common features among 23 different vendors that I studied. Obviously, you see push notifications, right? You see also optimal time messaging, right? Learning users' messaging preferences and releasing messages only at the correct and appropriate effective times. In-app messaging, right? Segmenting, cohorting. You also have higher order features, right? Features for personalizing content for cohorts or segments, personalizing content even down to the individual level, frankly, if you want to do that. And most solutions accommodate that. Some also offer some very sophisticated functionality for personalizing app functionality, or in the case of a game functionality, gameplay, to actually get it right down to exactly what a particular segment of users or cohort of users is going to find the most engaging. Very, very interesting things. When brands are, go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, right, to jump in here, especially having seen some of this from the front lines, it is amazing how the mobile world and how the in-app marketing world, particularly in the mobile world, compares and contrasts to, I think, the web and digital world a lot of the folks on the line are probably accustomed to. Three big themes that we've seen in doing this for a lot of our existing customers, a lot of our new customers here from Artisan and Tune. One is to build on what you mentioned earlier, John, winner take all. The app world is very much more winner take all than the traditional digital world and the traditional web world. Users are very hard to acquire, as we saw in those statistics and as we're seeing every day. Is a very competitive space to get mind share, and people just don't use that many apps. The apps that they do use, they use a lot and get a lot of value from and provide a lot of value to, but that pool is small and the relationship is much more intimate with those narrow few apps that people actually use, which is way different from the world of web where you're never more than one good search, one good SEO result, one good ad away from having another crack at a user, another link, another referral, another social share. And so it becomes so important to make sure that you're on that inner circle and that when you do have users in the inner circle, that you that you get the most out of them, that you keep them, you retain them, and make sure they're happy and you get the most out of them. The second frame of that, speaking of this, is mobile is much more people-oriented than the web world is, or at least the capabilities, just as you mentioned, to trace people more on the person level than just on the kind of user or session level. Because it's, especially in the smartphone world, one person, one device, it's something installed on their device directly, and the relationship is different. So you are definitely targeting people. You're definitely targeting someone with a distinct experience, and thus it's very important to engage on that level. And the third thing is, speaking of engaging on that level, there's so much more you can do. All the options on this chart right here, all those different rows, all those different bars, a lot of them are mobile specific and specific to the relationship of how people relate to mobile apps and specific to the technology of mobile. And that's just going to get more and more popular, even as the growth of smartphone purchasing and smartphone penetration slows, the usage of smartphones, that has plenty of growth still, both here in the U.S. and in the rest of the world, which we're seeing actively as well. And so a lot of these mechanisms are mobile specific, and it's so important to adapt what works on the web to use the additional mobile capability we're about to see in some of these use cases. Again, I could go on at length until everyone is bored to tears about the influence of push notifications and how they're important, and how in many ways push notifications are as essential for an effective mobile marketing presence as email is just in general. Now, don't get me wrong, email is actually an important part of a mobile presence too, because email is mobile. I think there are probably a number of people online right now, on the line, who first thing they do in the morning is they check their email on their phone right off their nightstand. Well, push notifications are pretty much as essential as email is in terms of reaching out to this narrow set of mobile users. Just as you do drip campaigns through email, push notifications, you can see a lot of the same results. And they're just as easy to get right and even easier to get wrong than email. The stakes are the same. You spam people with email, you spam people with push notifications, you're out. If you do it right, you can get incredible returns and give people what they want out of your service, and have those folks be great users of your service. And we'll talk and see more about that as we dive into these use cases.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dan. Perfect. And, that's a good segue, actually, because, we've got a list of, obviously, some of the features and functionality of in-app marketing solutions. We've also got, and I did the research recently, talked to 250 different companies who are using in-app marketing solutions, and 86% of their developers reported success. Right? I talked to one app marketer who realized $100,000 profits from one in-app message. That may not be exactly what you get on your first shot. Your mileage may vary, right? You may not have millions or even hundreds of thousands of users to unleash this technology on. But there are significant benefits all across the table. We see increased engagement, higher revenue, improved conversions, better user insights, and higher retention. And what Dan and I are going to do now is go into some examples of exactly what brands are doing, ranging from the very simple starter level solutions to a little more complex and a little more in-depth. And so I'll introduce a few of these things. Dan will have a few thoughts as we go here as well, and we'll go through 10 different examples of companies, brands, some mobile first, many non-mobile first, traditional brands, if you will, what they're doing and what's going on. Here's a simple example we'll start with, very simple example. This is Mixbook. Mixbook lets people create photo books on the fly on their phone, and they had a problem. 90% cart abandonment. Somebody create a Mixbook, a photo book, and it'd be beautiful, wonderful, and they would not actually purchase it. So very simple. They use an in-app marketing solution to create push notifications. Very simple, very easy, very basic. Result, 14% increase in conversions. Dan, just jump in anytime you have a thought. If you don't jump in, I'm moving ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's it's actually, it's fascinating. I mean, just in general, how deep and how much capability you can tie in with these experiences. Especially when it comes to reaching out properly and getting people to really get on board when the actual app experience comes through, either through the photo book example here or anything else. It's just use that potential of the outreach of the app itself, of the actual experience. Don't just take what you already know works on the web, because it's not the web, and I think this is the case here of that.
Very good. Very good. So here's another example, and this is a bigger enterprise example. Allianz, global insurance company, 85 million customers, wanted to build a more personal relationship with them, right? A personal relationship with 85 million individual customers. Traditionally, the company has worked with customers via phone, web, obviously in person as well. They built a customer service app and then engaged with their customers via in-app marketing, right? And the result of that has been they're now seeing 40% higher usage for mobile than desktop. In other words, people are preferentially using mobile over desktop, and not by a little, but by a lot. So that's kind of cool, of course, but the question is, why is it important from a business perspective? If you think about it, desktop, very little relationship, right? Customers use the website, they leave. Mobile is a much more personal device, as Dan talked about, right? There's instant communication, it's always nearby, has context on location. You can push notifications to it, you can send messages. There's much, much, much more context. So now, Allianz is riding along with their customers in their front pocket. They're on the 3-foot device. It's very, very powerful. That's an amazing result, especially for an insurance company, which you wouldn't think of necessarily first when it comes to having a place on somebody's mobile phone. But there's lots and lots of use cases where that makes sense.
Right, and to jump in here, this is something, again, speaking of the intrinsic nature of mobile and how it's used for marketing. First of all, people don't keep apps on their phone that are brochures. That's not true and never will be true. They need that app to be useful to them. They need it to deliver value. And this is the case, the Allianz case is exactly the example where, if the app is supremely useful, that positive experience both has value to your brand just in so much as it's a very valuable touch point to them. But it is also an excuse to keep coming back and to deepen that relationship, and that's a mobile intrinsic thing. So apps in general always need to be useful. Websites can be informational from a brand establishing perspective. And again, you can glance at it, get information quickly. But an app must always be useful. It must always be delivering the value. And every time you use that unique intimacy of the app, the stakes are higher. Because again, if you do it wrong, you'll really annoy people and you'll lose your position in that winner-take-all circle. And if you do it right, you stand a lot more to gain. And that's true for in-app marketing. That's true for how you use push notifications, how you use in-app messaging, how you tailor the experience of the app. The stakes are higher. You can win more, or you can get kicked out of the circle, which is a total loss, in which case you're back trying to re-win people out in the market. So it's very important to do it right, but the rewards are definitely there, and Allianz is doing it right in this case.
Good point, Dan. I think the quote I saw this morning was, nobody's using mobile to check the bio of the company's CFO. Right? You talked about brochureware a little bit. It needs to be useful, absolutely. Here's another example, and this one is a little more advanced than the Mixbook one. This is takeaway.com. They still have the .com in there, but they do have the mobile app. They wanted to reduce cart abandonment as well, but they wanted to do it better. So Mixbook tested messages or no messages. Takeaway went another step. Instead of just A/B testing no notification to a notification, they multivariate tested timing. So for abandoned carts, they do food delivery. For abandoned carts or food delivery, they tried various time delays on a push message: 75 minutes, 90 minutes, 105 minutes. When I saw this the first time and talked to the people who were doing this, I said, my impression was sooner is better, right? I would have thought so. Actually, wrong. The longest was the best. 105 minutes turned out to be the best, with an 8.8% conversion rate. I don't know what's going on there exactly. Perhaps the customers were hungrier, and so they were easier to convert at that point. I don't really know. The important thing here doesn't mean that later is better for all. It's just in this scenario, for this app, in this vertical, for these customers. And that's why testing is so important, and having the ability to test is so important. There aren't always strict rules about when to do push messaging, how much push messaging to do, and everything like that. You've got to work it, you've got to test it with your own customers for your own app, and see what works out best. And we can talk about that a little bit more in the questions as well.
Right. And I can't emphasize that point John just made enough. When you're doing this, you really got to approach it with the same sort of mindset with which you do performance marketing, with which you do growth marketing. It's exactly the same dynamic, data-driven. It's got to be data-driven. And we see those returns in the ways people actually use our platform. So in much the same way as someone who's trying to drive these app installs is neck deep into an attribution analytics product for seeing how effective different ad campaigns are and getting butts in the seats, getting people to actually download the app, that same rigor about testing, about targeting, about evaluating the results and iterating has to be applied to do this effectively. This is one very good example of it, and you see it all over the place because there's real gold to be had if you have the discipline to do it right and you make it using data. One other very important point, as John was mentioning, in terms of targeting the right people, that's incredibly important in this space, again, because of that relationship with mobile. To throw a couple of numbers out there, a blast push notification just sent to everyone, just blindly sent to all of your users, it's very common to see less than 1% conversion rates for those. And the opportunity cost for that is high because if you hit someone with a push notification like that, you can't hit them with a targeted one or a better one later. You only get so many bites of that apple, and the fewer the better. So the opportunity cost for untargeted messaging is really high. But if you do target it right, you put a message that someone is likely to care about to a group of people as defined by how they're using your app, who they are, how recently they've been using it, their demographic profile. If you put a message like that that's targeted at something that's likely to interest them, instead of less than 1%, it's vastly better, order of magnitude better or more. We've seen cases of push notifications open rates above 15 or 20% in cases where, and overall engagement rates well above that in terms of people who open the app and actually do what the push notification notifies them of if it's something that they're likely to care about. So that I can't emphasize either of those points John made enough. They're essential to do these things data-driven and to make sure you're actually hitting the right audience, because that's the only way you can really get the value that is in-app marketing.
Great stuff, Dan. And that's actually a great segue as well to this story. This is CVS. Obviously, most of you will know that huge pharmacy chain. This is actually a tuned customer. And sometimes using data that way can be a lifesaver. And in-app marketing can be a lifesaver. So CVS was about to launch a new type of loyalty program. They're going to launch it to everybody in their app. They decided to do a test. They were using our in-app marketing product, and they discovered, and Dan was instrumental in this actually, in this working with CVS, they discovered it actually reduced performance significantly on a number of important KPIs. You know, you can't emphasize the value of that as a lifesaver for the company, because you can get a chance to send it to 10% of your customers, 5% of your customers, maybe 5,000 or 2,500. See what happens, and reverse course or go all in if the results are good. But you get a chance to test that. Really, really good. They canceled the rollout. They're probably retooling it and about to re-release.
Right, and this is what I'm intimately familiar with. Exactly right. It's so important, not just even from a marketing perspective, from a product perspective, to use that data-driven capability to roll things out right. Again, the stakes are high, mistakes get penalized harshly, good moves get rewarded with tremendous bottom-line impact. So use the capability of the technology. Use the technologies that are out there to make the right move, to iterate quickly and experiment to see if something is the wrong or right move, and then act on that. And that's something that happened here, in which case they explored, used the tools that were available to them, and not just purely for self-promotion purposes, because it happened to be our tools in this case, but just in general, use the tools that are out there that make the mobile space much easier and much more comfortable to do things like this to make sure you're making the right move. You don't have to move blindly. You don't have to move in intuition. You know, A/B test it, target it to people, see what works, and then act. And that's as critical in mobile as anywhere else, and I'd argue more critical.
Awesome. And, you know, we talked about the intimacy of mobile and the context of mobile, including location context. And Canada's largest bank, RBC, implemented a mobile customer relationship solution that can send each of its 50 million customers in 51 countries automated alerts via SMS, push, and or email when money's withdrawn from their accounts in ATM. So if you're taking money out, you'll get the push notification before you even get your receipt from the machine. If you didn't do it, you can take immediate action in the app. right? Identity theft is a big deal. And you can imagine how this can help from a banking perspective or other areas as well. Similar story actually from BNP, the French multinational bank. They're using location parameters as a security measure. So somebody from Kenya is trying to access your American bank account, for instance. There can be a block on that. Certain banking operations can only be performed if the mobile devices are within user-approved zones, right? In an area you said, yeah, I'm doing business in this area. Maybe I'm in North America, and that's fine, right? Activities canceled if it's made from other areas or suspicious areas.
Right, and again, this is all, again, about using unique purposes of mobile here. This is unique to the technology of what mobile apps are capable of. This is unique to the relationship that people have with their mobile apps, and it's using about that information that's available, that user-specific relationship, and by user, I mean people-specific relationship that mobile apps enable, which, again, is way easier on the mobile app side than it is on the web side. The information is available, the relationship is different. So use those tools. And again, above all else, even forgetting the marketing side of things, if you want to have a successful mobile presence, as John mentioned, as I mentioned, I'm about to mention again, your app must be useful. Your app must do something that is valuable. It must be slick to use, and it must be something clear that gives the user an excuse to use your app besides just retrieving information. And this is just one case where they're using the intrinsic properties of mobile, the relationship with people, to make a useful app even more useful.
Excellent stuff. Okay, we're going to buzz through the next few here so we have some time for questions still. There's still actually, believe it or not, a long ways to go for many companies, many brands, in terms of location awareness, even among platform owners. Just recently, I was in the airport. I was heading out to San Francisco, taking the United flight, getting the boarding pass on my United app, open it up, and Apple decided that that was a great opportunity to start updating that app. So I'm literally steps from the airport, which frankly is information that is available to Apple, and they started updating that app. So I had to print out a boarding pass, right? So an important question I think is, what does location awareness mean for my brand or my business? How does it matter? In some cases, you're not a physical brand. You don't have a physical location. It still matters because people, maybe they're using your services while in transit. Maybe they're shopping while in transit. Maybe it's evening and they're more likely at home. There's a lot of different ways to think about actually the hard information about where somebody is, but the extrapolation on what they're doing, what their activities are based on where they are as well. One other thing I wanted to bring out, and that is location is critical, sure, but timing is also critical. So this is an example of OneFootball. It's the most downloaded soccer app in the world, about 25 million users, 50,000 new downloads every day. In the last World Cup of Soccer, a company that had done some advertising with OneFootball, which was Adidas, had two teams wearing its equipment in the final game of the World Cup. So minutes after it was over, there was a special commemorative jersey available for purchase at adidas.com. Sad part, nobody knew anything about it, right? Everybody's celebrating. This past season, however, after they did a more complex deal, a better deal with OneFootball, German player Thomas Muller scores a goal in game for his club team, Bayern Munich. Adidas had his jersey ready in seconds and had an offer live in the OneFootball app, literally in seconds, via an in-app message, right? Which generated 6.6% click-through rate to Adidas.com. So having the right thing at the right time, being able to send it at the right time, really, really critical. And that that can be done via in-app message. That can be done via push notification as well, right? Everybody who has an app in their customers' hands wants the ability to deliver push messaging. But frankly, the rates hover between 40 and 60%, depending on the vertical, in terms of brands that are able to get their users, their customers to say yes to that. So how do you get your users to say yes to opt-in notifications? One major entertainment company, can't mention the name, they wouldn't allow us to use it, but they were very, very smart. They didn't ask for it right away, right? They didn't ask as soon as the install, can we send you push notifications, right? That's sort of like going first base on a first date. You want to ask when your users, your customers are happy, when they've experienced the app. So at that point, after some usage, they showed these sort of new-ish users an interstitial, right, that on their own is a push notification, not a push notification, an in-app message. Would you like us to notify you when new games are available or when it's your turn in a game you're playing, right? The immediate result was a 25% increase in opt-in for push notifications. That's massive. That's your customer, your user saying, yes, you are allowed to send me messages. That's absolutely huge. Permission marketing, right? So the cool part, though, is if users say no to that in-app message, you can ask again later when they're more engaged or more happy. If you ask right away and use system functionality for that and they say no, you're kind of shut down for good. I mean, unless you get super, super lucky. But this was just a question. If they said yes, boom, then they triggered the system functionality. Very, very interesting. Knock-on effect of doing that was a 25% increase in game starts and 2 times the revenue generated from those users. So very, very, very impressive. Very, very interesting. Brief comment on that, Dan?
So just in general, actually, even just reaching back to the example you mentioned from Adidas, one of the e-commerce companies we work with, as a matter of fact, we work with a number of them, but one of the takeaways based off of that case is don't send the apparel for teams that your customers are not fans of. Don't put that in front of them. So, again, that Bayern Munich case, or just in general the German World Cup case, do not try to sell Cowboys gear to an Eagles fan or a Giants fan, and vice versa. It seems incredibly intuitive and obvious, and it is obvious. But in the mobile space, speaking of that relationship with users, it's possible to do that. It's also possible to screw it up and, again, try to sell Cowboys gear to an Eagles fan. So, again, all the tools are there to do it right. All you have to do is reach out and grab them. As a matter of fact, there's an incredible set of tools, and again, not purely for self-promotional purposes, but the tooling in terms of this sort of sensitive, mobile-specific outreach to do it right is out there. So definitely investigate that, because you don't need to have professional services crawling all over your IT organization to do the things we're talking about here. A lot of it can be acquired off the shelf without that much engineering effort, and you can do these things right, including basically all the cases that John's been talking about. So it's definitely possible for your organization, whatever it is, if you have a mobile app that has value to your users, to do things right in exactly the way that John's talking about.
Cool, or even if you're starting a new mobile app for your company, which hopefully everybody has one or is actually doing that, given where people are spending their time right now. I'm going to end with this slide here. I'm pretty sure we all know about Starbucks. They launched payment via their mobile app quite some time ago, last year. And they revealed that 21% of people were paying via mobile wallet in the U.S., right, paying via the app. That's really, really impressive. I mean, this is not a market, the U.S. is not a market known for mobile payments, right, or for m-commerce, not necessarily, right? The U.S. is not India, where your phone is your computer, right? And it's not as contactless in terms of payment at the register as Europe or Canada, maybe some other places. But very, very impressive. Walmart has seen that, and they launched payment in-app as well. The interesting thing here is that Walmart's never had a loyalty program, right? This is a company with $500 billion in sales a year. Never had a loyalty program, which tells you a lot about customer behavior, what they value, what they buy, and everything, because a loyalty program has a cost, right? 1% to 3% of sales, depending. Now, by doing payments in-app, they will get that same visibility into orders, into customer behavior, into timing of purchases, into what people want, without that 1% to 3% cost of a loyalty program. Very, very interesting, and sets them up very, very well for a future of e-commerce and m-commerce, frankly. So that's 10 different examples of brands, of companies doing interesting things with in-app marketing and achieving interesting results. I'm going to turn it back over to Stuart here, and I believe we have some time yet for a few questions. So if you haven't gotten yours in yet, now might be a good time.
Great. Well, thanks, John, and thanks, Dan. If you've got a question about this topic, about in-app marketing, please just use the Q&A widget. We're going to get to as many as we can. Before we do that, a couple quick reminders. First off, if you enjoyed this and you want to share it with your colleagues, the webinar will be available on demand in about 2 hours. So please send people on over to check out the on-demand version. You'll get an email with how to get over there, and that'll come again probably about 4 o'clock Eastern time today, so keep an eye on your inbox. And also, if you want a copy of today's slide deck, please, it is in the resource list folder down there on the bottom of your screen, so you can grab a copy of the slides and share them with your colleagues as well. And of course, if you enjoyed this webinar and you want to go to another AdWeek webinar, please check out our webinar calendar. There's a link also in the resource list folder. I see a bunch of questions coming in, but let's start off here, John, with this whole idea of onboarding. We had a question. You've got a new app, you have people signing up, and you've got to sort of bring them through to figure out how they can become loyal app users. Is there sort of any best practice or really sort of what's most important when you're onboarding a new user?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things, and it starts with that you actually onboard them. Most apps, they will just jump you right into the app experience, and you've got to kind of figure it out, go for it, and try it. An onboarding experience is proven to increase D3, D7 retention, right? Day 7, Day 3, Day 30 retention. Give them a quick sense of what's going on, what's happening. Don't just jump them into the app blind. There's two things here. One, you might be using deep links or universal links, right? That's great for you because it's tracking. It tells you where people tapped or clicked on your ads, or where people found your stuff organically via social or web or wherever. But it's also great for users because you bring them right into an expected experience within the app, not just a default vanilla experience, but the one that's relevant to the place where they actually decided to download the app. So that's really, really cool. The second thing is, in this tutorial or onboarding experience, give them the lie of the land. Give them a couple clues about what they can do, what value they can find here, what they can access. It's kind of like it's kind of like maybe 5 years ago when people were coming up with all their e-commerce initiatives, right? And people were saying, maybe 10 years ago as well, people were saying, you're not Amazon, don't copy Amazon. Amazon did everything wrong and still succeeded, right? In the mobile world here right now, you're not Snapchat, don't copy Snapchat, right? You jump into Snapchat, if you're over the age of maybe 18, maybe 25, whatever it might be, you're going, what the heck? Where do I do anything, right? You're not Snapchat, don't copy Snapchat. Give them the lie of the land, show them how it works, show them what to do, and you'll have higher D3, D7, D30 retention. Really important.
Okay. Sorry to jump in on my side. One other thing I should note is it extends on the theme of the idea that an app must be useful. An app must be useful. As I like to say about onboarding, a little bit of onboarding goes a long way, but no onboarding goes nowhere. You really just need something that says hello and points out how to get to the part that a user most likely downloaded the app to do. Because usually there's a handful of things, maybe not even more than one, but one important thing that caused the user to either tap that ad to download the app or to go through the App Store and jump through the hoops to find it. And that's where deep linking is important, as John mentioned, because deep linking from an ad, for example, can tell you exactly what it is that this user is finding useful about this app, why they tapped that ad at all in order to get in, and then you can onboard them according to what exactly they are thinking this app is going to be useful to do. So that's the upshot there. I would really emphasize that point. The little bit goes a long way. Just remember why the user probably downloaded the app in the first place, use deferred deep linking, like what is available through platforms like Tune, to understand as best you can about why the user downloaded the app, and just say hello and make sure they know how to get there.
Okay. You know, we often get a lot of questions here, John and Dan, about different industries, but one that came in here, someone was asking about mobile apps in the supermarket industry. It seems an area certainly where loyalty cards, couponing, things like that have begun. Right? We've gone from sort of paper coupons to loyalty cards that are sort of, you know, your key fob to, I would assume the mobile app environment is really important in that marketplace because it's a very loyal customer base. Is there some stuff that, or practices or where you're seeing mobile apps going in the supermarket area?
I think that's a really, really ripe area right now, and there's a bunch of different things going on there. First of all, look at the number of food delivery startups skyrocketing, and obviously there's a bit of a crunch in some of the capital markets when you see that tail off, but there's obviously some interest and some demand there. Secondly, look at what Amazon is doing with Echo. And you say, Alexa, please add brown sugar to my shopping list, and boom, it's on the shopping list. Where do you think Amazon is going to go with that long term? Where do you think Amazon wants to be in terms of all of the retail and the supermarket shopping business in the U.S. and globally? And when they have access to all that, you can already reorder, you know, with the little buttons via Echo, and also those little tab buttons that Amazon has. Reorder your Tide dish soap or laundry detergent or whatever the case might be. That is an area that is ripe for mobile, because guess what? If I'm going to Safeway, let's say, and Safeway has the app, you know, Safeway might say, you know, you typically, you know, buy this, and you need to add this to your list. What's on my list? I mean, my wife and I coordinating our shopping list is horrific right now. We're not very good at it. If you can help with that, if you can have one shared list, maybe between us for the family or for even for individuals, and then delivery of the food, really, really ripe for some kind of solution here. And then you don't even have to go to the supermarket, but I can just order it via your mobile app. Very, very cool and interesting possibilities.
Yeah, it's the same idea of, you know, what is useful, and exactly the cases John mentioned are useful. We actually have seen a lot of this firsthand, especially the couponing cases for some of the companies we've worked with, where couponing through mobile apps is definitely a thing with significant traction. Companies like SnipSnap, for example, have seen a lot of effectiveness there in terms of digitizing coupons and using that for shopping experiences. Also, one thing just in general for brick and mortar retailers, supermarkets, more than anything, is iBeacon integration and being able to align and enhance the brick and mortar experience. So, for example, if you've got an end cap or some sort of product-specific area where you'd want to reach out to that user to give them a special offer, to give them a discount, or to enable them to, for example, pre-build a cart ahead of time, those are all options that we've seen other brick-and-mortar businesses use successfully. So those are two avenues in which you can really use mobile well in conjunction with supermarket industry.
Okay, you know, I'm looking at the clock, and we've got a few more questions here, but we're about to hit the top of the hour. So, unfortunately, we're not going to have a chance to get to all of them. I just want to, again, I'll make sure, John and Dan, that you guys get a copy of the questions that came in here, so maybe you'll have a chance to get to some of these people offline. So I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank our audience for taking time out of their busy day to attend this. I know that there's a lot of pent-up demand here for information on in-app marketing. I know encourage people to go on over to Tune, learn a little bit about more of your offerings in that area. I want to also remind our viewers that the webinar is on demand in about 2 hours, so please send your colleagues there. Check out some other upcoming Adweek webinars. We love having everyone here, love having an audience, love sharing a lot of this great information. Adweek.com/webinars for our calendar of upcoming events and on-demand events, and follow us on Twitter at AWWebinars. Again, thanks everybody for taking time out of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at an upcoming Adweek webinar.